welcome to another one of our ARC episodes. Now I got this one as an ARC, but it's been out for about a year, so it was still on the ARC website. I don't know how it works, whether you have to sign up a certain load of people, but it was still there and it seemed interesting to me, so I picked it up. And here is my review for it. So this is The Secrets of Sea Pines, The Battle for Hilton Head's Treasure by Robert Perrault. I hope I've said that right. I probably haven't, and I apologise. It's a tale of the search for buried treasure and the dangers that come with such an undertaking as finding hidden treasure, which really got me because I am in such a pirate kick at the minute. It's just maddening. So there might be spoilers in this, so if you haven't read it and you have an intention to, please don't watch this video until after you've read it, because there will be spoilers, because I will start ranting. Or rambling, whichever you want, but I think it's more going to be ranting. So we'll start with the story outline, and this story starts in Atlanta, Georgia in 1947. And Joseph Grammer is going to an auction to find something as a gift for his wife Pearl. And he settles on a book for the Salem witch trials by Cotton Mather, which I thought was going to be a really bigger central thing around this book with witchcraft and hidden treasure and pirates, and it wasn't. The book never gets mentioned again, which he of course wins this book. And he takes it back to their lumberyard to show his son Charles, because he likes winning these things and his wife has quite an interest in the Salem witch trials. Now, while he's showing this, a piece of paper falls out of this book, and it's a strongbox receipt for Security Box 17, owned by a Samuel Goldsmith at the Plymouth Savings Bank. Now, his son Charles really likes the mysteries, detective kind of things that come on the radio or the magazines, stories, etc. And so this is, like anybody, wants to know, is this person alive? Is the strong box still there? What's in the strong box? Curiosity and everything. And you as a reader, you really want to know what's in this strong box too, because why not? This is a book about hidden treasure. You really want to know. Now, Charles goes to investigate it, and that's where we stop. And we get a time switch all the way back to the year 1662 on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. Captain William Hilton and his first mate and best friend Samuel Goldsmith are lugging this treasure chest through the forest in order to bury it for safekeeping, so they can come back for it at a later date. Now, this treasure chest isn't gotten by ill-gotten means. They're not pirates. They're members of sort of the American Navy, I think, if I remember rightly. And this is what they've been rewarded with. And instead of taking it on the ship or putting it on land, like in a bank where it can get stolen because security isn't really that good, they go to this remote island, drag it through the woods, and determine to bury it, because of course you would. Now, on the way to bury this treasure, Captain Hilton is mauled by an alligator and entrusts Samuel Goldsmith to bury the chest in a certain space. So you can still see him, so he's not going to run away with the damn thing. And they make it back to Carolina. Hilton's health declines because of being mauled by this alligator and it taking so long to get back to land and a medical person, that he makes his last will and testament in Plymouth. Not in Plymouth, UK, but in Plymouth, America. Now, he entrusts this treasure map to his son Andrew on his deathbed and says that this map will set you up for life. There is buried treasure. I buried all the treasure, and this is all for you, to set you up, to set our family up as our legacy. But there is skullduggery afoot, as his best friend and first mate, Samuel Goldsmith, is outside this room listening in, and he thinks, fuck no. They did all the work to get this treasure, and his son hasn't lifted a bloody finger. So the treasure should really go to Sam Goldsmith. So while the son is saying goodbye to his dying father, this guy's supposed best friend and captain, Samuel Goldsmith goes to this guy's desk and gets the map and the will and absconds. Now, Samuel then takes his son Lawrence, which he fills in on all this treasure, omitting the fact that it was actually William Hilton's, that all this treasure was coming to them, and he places both the will and the map in a security box at Plymouth Savings Bank, and tells his son that he will hide the receipt for this strongbox, doesn't tell him where, but he tells him that, in a few days he'll just tell him where it is and everything will be rosy. Why he just doesn't tell him right at the beginning, because he's told him all this story anyway, is never really explained. But that night, Samuel Goldsmith is awoken by two intruders, and one of these intruders is Andrew Hilton, who knows that the only other person in that house that knew about this treasure was Samuel Goldsmith, and it must be him that stole the will and stole the treasure. Stole the will and stole the map to this treasure. Samuel refuses to tell him, refuses to fess up, and they promptly beat him to death and throw him down the stairs. So it really is a bloody mess by the end of it. So they murder him, and they never find out where the map is, they never find out where the treasure is, and they don't find the will. And then it just ends there. You never get another mention of these characters. And we get another time shift, so it switches to 1847 in Boston, Massachusetts. Now the Plymouth Bank is closing down, and we get so this whole chapter is just for exposition to say what happens when a bank closes down, what happens to the safety deposit boxes that are in that bank, depending on what they contain. If they contain gold jewels, it goes to the federal bank where it can be claimed if you have a receipt. If it concerns documents, then it goes to the federal bank, but if the documents are over a certain age, then it goes to Yale University for sort of like a museum safekeeping kind of thing. It's archived and it's sealed, and it can only be unsealed after 100 years has passed. Which promptly brings us back around to 1947. So that's where it picks up in 1947, and Charles is on board a train to go to Boston to investigate this receipt that he has for this strongbox even further, because he can't let it lie. It's curiosity. And in this compartment, he has a compartment companion in the form of a lady named Mary. Now this is an instant meet cute, and it is quite cute. It's kind of well written how cute it is. He's like a Labrador puppy, and she is a bit more reserved. Sometimes you think, oh, you're a bit cringy, but it's cute. And she offers to help with his adventure. And so they end up going to this box, and it says that the will is catalogued, but there is no mention of the map. When they leave the archives, the receptionist at the archives makes a phone call to a shady character, informing them of these two and what they were looking for. They were looking for his strongbox and what was in it. And this particular shady character turns out to be none other than Samuel Goldsmith, a direct descendant of the original Samuel Goldsmith. And that's all I'm doing on the story. So we're going to go into what I feel about this book in particular. For me, the writing is a bit fast. It's like it's written in bullet points, and the reader is told what happens rather than being able to discover it for ourselves. And if a conversation isn't between the three main characters of Charles, Mary and Joseph, then it is really glossed over. You're told that they had the conversation and the outcome of the conversation in 2 sentences. And that is all you get. And don't even get me started on the secondary characters, that they're glossed over. You don't really get a feel for them. And they're just there as plot fodder, so you really don't care what happens to them at all. There's no backstory for any of them. It's not dwelt on what they think of all this. It's just that everybody's happy to help these 3 main characters. And even the bad guys aren't really fleshed out enough. Samuel Goldsmith is, in those sort of first chapters, really built up to be this sort of big shady character that wants the treasure at all costs and damn whoever goes in his way. But he turns out to be more of a minor annoyance than a big bad, than any sort of real actual threat. And the mafia even comes into this. There's this big bad mafia boss that holds the city in a vice-like grip, and it has all the police in his pocket, and everybody is afraid to even utter his name, never mind have a conversation or any interaction with him. And it's just like these characters have so much, it has so much potential, but in the end, he goes up against these main characters and it's barely an inconvenience. And he's quickly ended. The whole thing is quickly ended. And it feels like there was so much potential. So much could be a bit darker. And it never really grows into that. But all in all, it's not a bad read. It's one that you could curl up with on like a rainy afternoon and just read it for the afternoon. I feel that it could have had more suspense, it being a treasure hunt. The situations that the characters find themselves in are dangerous, sort of on paper, but they never really seem dangerous to the characters. The three main characters have so much plot armour, it practically clinks whenever there's a scene with them. So really, you don't really worry about them because you know that no matter what happens to them, or whatever situation they find themselves in, they're always going to be alright. Now, here I am going to get into spoilers because I'm going to talk about the ending and the epilogue. And the ending is tied up very neatly, very quickly, with a happy ever after kind of trope. So in reading up about this book after I finished it and before I wrote all these notes, it reads like it's supposed to be a standalone book. However, I was extremely surprised to find that this is the first book in a 7-book series. And unless the ending of the actual book is different to the ending of the ARC copy, then I have no idea how it can be the first of 7, because everything was neatly tied up with bows on. Charles and Mary were married and had children. Joseph and Pearl grew to a ripe old age and died of natural causes. They even killed Sam Goldsmith in the epilogue, which happens 47 years after the ending of the actual story. And they fake Charles's death, and they all end up sipping rum on an island in Caicos, which really, really confused me because it's really sort of jolting and jarring that just they're on a boat in the middle of the ocean and he somehow gets out of jail, finds them, goes to kill them, Mary kills him, and then they fake Charles's death, and that's where the epilogue's left. So in reading about this book online, that's how I found out it was supposed to be the first of 7. It reads like it's supposed to be a standalone book, and I don't know whether it did so well that they said make it a series. I read the synopsis of the second book to see, well, how can it be a series when everything was so neatly tied up? And reading the synopsis of the second book, Robber's Row, it seems like that whole ending, that whole epilogue, and even the last chapter of the ARC copy was scrapped, completely scrapped. Because in the second book, Robber's Row, the whole antagonistic bit is that Pearl, Charles's mother, is killed in a hit and run, which is very, very suspicious, and it's not a natural death, and it seems that the whole faking death never happens. So, and it was quite jarring it was confusing to me, and I have no plans to read the second book at all. Unless this video gets like 1,000 views, it's never going to happen. And so for me, this book gets 3 stars, because I like the premise of it, and the characters were cute, but I don't feel that it met the potential that it could have done. And that is just my opinion. But I will have the Amazon link down below if you feel that this book would be something that you would want to read and to find out for yourself whether you liked it or not. And as always, leave me a comment, give me a like, give me a subscribe, and as always, keep reading.